Did you know there's a place in America where your cell phone is a federal crime? Where Wi-Fi signals are hunted down by government agents like they're radioactive weapons? That somewhere in the United States a river flows backward through time, literally older than the mountains it cuts through, defying every law of geology you learned in school. And that in the 1960s a creature with glowing red eyes and massive wings appeared to an entire town just days before a bridge collapsed, killing 4. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is West Virginia. You think you know this state? Coal mines, country roads, poverty, forgotten hills. But what if I told you that beneath those stereotypes lies the single most paradoxical piece of land in North America? A place where the federal government has banned the 21st century, where mountains that once rivaled the Himalayas still guard secrets in valleys so deep that sunlight struggles to reach the bottom, where the only state born from treason hides a bunker designed to save Congress from nuclear war. I'm about to show you 50 facts about West Virginia that will shatter everything you thought you knew. And I promise you, by fact number 1, you'll never see this state the same way again. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I'd love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. Fact 50. The National Radio Quiet Zone, where technology goes to die. Imagine pulling into a town and watching your phone signal disappear. Not because of bad service, but because it's illegal. Why? Because sitting in this valley is the Green Bank Telescope, the largest fully steerable radio telescope on Earth. It's so sensitive it can detect a single snowflake hitting the ground on Pluto. So the government created a bubble, a zone of silence. Police patrol the area with radio frequency detectors, hunting for rogue signals like they're contraband. It sounds dystopian, but for some it's paradise. People with electromagnetic hypersensitivity have fled here from across the country, claiming that modern technology makes them physically ill. In Green Bank they can finally breathe. But for everyone else it's a glimpse into what America would look like if the future was outlawed. Fact 49. The Mothman of Point Pleasant. The creature that predicted disaster. On November 12, 1966, 5 men were digging a grave in a cemetery near Clendenin when they saw something that shouldn't exist. A massive figure shaped like a man but with wings folded against its back, lifted off from nearby trees and flew directly over their heads. 3 days later, 2 young couples driving near an abandoned TNT plant outside Point Pleasant saw it again. But this time it was different. The creature stood over 6 feet tall with wings spanning 10 feet or more. But it was the eyes that froze them in terror, glowing crimson orbs that reflected their headlights like an animal's, but bigger, brighter, and filled with something that felt like malice. They fled. The creature followed, chasing their car at speeds over 100 miles per hour without ever flapping its wings. It only stopped when they reached the city limits, vanishing into the darkness as suddenly as it appeared. Over the next 13 months, more than 100 people reported seeing the Mothman. Witnesses described the same details: the massive wings, the red eyes, the unnatural silence of its flight. And then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio collapsed during rush hour traffic, plunging 46 people to their deaths in the icy Ohio River below. The sighting stopped immediately. Some say the Mothman was a warning. Others believe it caused the collapse. But one thing is certain: Point Pleasant has never forgotten the creature that appeared before their darkest day. Fact 48. The Flatwoods Monster, West Virginia's alien encounter. If the Mothman was a warning, the Flatwoods Monster was pure terror. On September 12, 1952, 3 boys saw a bright object streak across the sky and crash into a hillside near Flatwoods. When they ran to investigate, joined by a local woman and a National Guardsman, they found something that defied explanation. Standing in the mist near a massive pulsing ball of light was a creature. It towered 10 feet tall, with a blood-red face, glowing green eyes, and a body shaped like the ace of spades. When it noticed them, it hissed, released a sickening metallic mist, and glided toward them without moving its legs. They ran, but the encounter left them violently ill for days, vomiting, throat swelling, strange burns on their skin. The Air Force investigated and dismissed it as a meteor and an owl, but the witnesses never changed their story. And to this day, the Flatwoods Monster remains one of the most trustful and terrifying alleged alien encounters in American history. Fact 47. Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, a Gothic fortress of madness. In the hills of Weston stands one of the largest hand-cut stone buildings in North America. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was designed in the 1850s to house 250 patients in humane conditions, a revolutionary idea for its time. By the 1950s, it held over 2,400 people. The overcrowding was nightmarish. Patients were crammed into hallways, chained to radiators, subjected to lobotomies, and electroshock therapy in basement rooms that still reek of suffering. The building closed in 1994, but locals say it never emptied. Footsteps echo down abandoned corridors. Doors slam in windless rooms. Shadow figures are seen staring from the barred windows. It's been featured on every ghost hunting show imaginable, and for good reason. This place doesn't just look honk. It feels haunted, like the stone itself absorbed decades of despair and refuses to let it go. Fact 46. Moundsville Penitentiary, where justice was medieval. From 1876 to 1995, Moundsville Penitentiary was a place where hope went to die. This Gothic fortress housed West Virginia's most violent criminals in conditions that would make modern prisons look like resorts. Inmates were packed into 5 by 7 foot cells with no running water. Executions were public events, hangings first, then the electric chair nicknamed Old Sparky, which claimed 94 lives before the prison closed. Riots were common, violence was currency, and death was always close. Now it's a museum, but the darkness hasn't left. Visitors report hearing screams from empty cell blocks, seeing apparitions of executed prisoners, and feeling overwhelming dread in the North Hall, where the worst inmates were kept in near total isolation. Some guards who worked there refused to return, even for tours, saying the place still remembers everything that happened within its walls. If you're already hooked by these facts, imagine what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button right now because we're about to dive into underground ice mountains, secret government bunkers, and rivers that science can't fully explain. Don't let the algorithm decide if you see this. Take control and subscribe. You won't regret it. Fact 45. Ice Mountain, nature's impossible refrigerator. In the middle of summer when temperatures outside hit 90 degrees, there's a mountain in West Virginia where ice forms in the cracks between boulders. Ice Mountain shouldn't exist. It defies thermodynamics. But here's what happens. Cold air gets trapped in the massive talus boulder field during winter. When summer arrives, that frigid air is pushed upward through the rocks by a process called chimney effect, creating vents that blow air cold enough to freeze water. The result? Ice formations in July. Arctic plants growing hundreds of miles south of where they should exist. A microclimate so unique that scientists still argue about the exact mechanics. It's a reminder that West Virginia's geology plays by its own rules. Fact 44. Organ Cave, the underground arsenal of the Confederacy. Beneath the rolling hills near Ronceverte lies one of the longest caves in the United States. Organ Cave stretches for 47 miles, a labyrinth of chambers and passages carved by ancient water through limestone, laid down when this land was a shallow tropical sea. During the Civil War, Confederate soldiers discovered something valuable in these chambers: saltpeter deposits. Saltpeter is the key ingredient in gunpowder. For 2 years, soldiers worked underground, mining the mineral and shipping it to ammunition factories. They built hoppers, carved names and dates into the walls, and turned this natural wonder into a weapon of war. You can still see their graffiti. Still walk through the chambers where they worked by candlelight. The cave remembers the war, even if the world outside has moved on. Fact 43. Lost World Caverns. Home to Snowy the 30-ton. Deep beneath Lewisburg lies a cavern system discovered by accident in 1942. Lost World Caverns contain some of the most spectacular cave formations in North America, including stalactites, stalagmites and flowstone curtains that look like frozen waterfalls. But the star of the show is Snowy, a massive white stalagmite standing 30 feet tall and weighing approximately 30 tons. It's one of the largest and whitest formations of its kind in the world, built drip by drip over hundreds of thousands of years. The cave is still alive, still growing. Every drop of water that seeps through the limestone above deposits a Kaiserite layer of calcite, adding to formations that will outlast every human structure on the surface. Fact 42. Trout Pond, the only natural lake. Here's something that will shock you. West Virginia, a state defined by water, rivers, streams, waterfalls, has exactly one natural lake. Trout Pond, located in the Monongahela National Forest, is a small, shallow body of water created by a natural landslide thousands of years ago. Every other lake in the state is man-made, created by damming rivers for flood control, power generation, or recreation. This tiny pond is a remnant of the Ice Age, a time when glaciers carved the landscape just north of West Virginia. It's a quiet, unremarkable place, but it's proof that this land was shaped by forces so powerful that even the water couldn't settle here naturally. Fact 41. Seneca Rocks, the razor edge of time. Rising 900 feet above the valley floor, Seneca Rocks is one of the most dramatic geological features in the eastern United States. Over eons, tectonic pressure tilted the rock layers nearly vertical, and erosion carved away everything but the hardest stone. What remains is a formation so sharp, so sheer, that it's become one of the premier rock climbing destinations in the East. During World War II, the U.S. Army trained mountain troops here, preparing them for the cliffs of Europe. Climbers still come from around the world to test themselves against these ancient stone blades, challenging a mountain that has stood for hundreds of millions of years. Fact 40. New River Gorge Bridge. the steel arch that conquered the gorge. For decades, crossing the New River Gorge meant a 40-minute detour down winding mountain roads, with the valley floor and back up the other side. In 1977, that changed. The New River Gorge Bridge is a 3,030-foot-long steel arch that soars 87,006 feet above the river, one of the highest vehicular bridges in the United States. When it was completed, it was the longest single-span arch bridge in the world, a title it held for decades. Building it was an engineering nightmare. Workers had to anchor the bridge to cliffs of ancient sandstone while dealing with unpredictable winds, extreme heights, and the knowledge that one mistake would send them plummeting into the gorge below. Every October, the bridge closes to traffic for one day. Bridge Day. Thousands of base jumpers and rappellers descend on the gorge to leap from the span, free-falling toward the river in a celebration of human daring versus geological permanence. Fact 39. The winding roads, where trucks lose control. West Virginia has more runaway truck ramps per mile than any other state in America. That's not a bragging point, it's a warning. The mountains here are steep. The roads twist in hairpin curves, climbing and descending thousands of feet in just a few miles. Truck brakes overheat. Drivers lose control. And when a 40-ton semi starts careening downhill at 80 miles per hour, the only thing between disaster and survival is a gravel ramp designed to drag the truck to a stop through sheer friction. These ramps are everywhere. Some are used multiple times a week. They're a reminder that in West Virginia, nature hasn't been tamed. It's been temporarily negotiated with. Fact 38. The Coal House. A building made of fuel. In the town of Williamson stands a building that is quite literally made of coal. The coal house was constructed in 1933 using 65 tons of bituminous coal as a primary building material. Each block was cut, shaped, and mortared together like stone. It was built as a monument to the industry that defined the region, a physical manifestation of the black rock that brought wealth and war to these mountains. It still stands today, a dark, imposing structure that smells faintly of sulfur and history. You can touch the walls and feel the fossilized remains of ancient tropical forests. Forests that grew here 300 million years ago when West Virginia was a steaming swamp at the equator. Fact 37. Clay County, where the Golden Delicious was born. In 1890, on a hillside farm in Clay County, a man named Anderson Mullins found a strange apple tree growing on his property. The apples were yellow, sweet, and unlike anything he'd ever tasted. That tree was the original Golden Delicious, one of the most popular apple varieties in the world. Every Golden Delicious apple you've ever eaten is a descendant of that single tree. The original tree died in 1958, but a monument marks the spot where it stood. It's a small thing, but it's a reminder that West Virginia's soil, shaped by ancient seas, tropical swamps, and mountain-building collisions, can still produce something sweet. Fact 36. Harewood House, where the Washingtons made history. In Charlestown stands Harewood House, built in 1770 by Samuel Washington, brother of George Washington. This Georgian mansion hosted some of the most important figures of the Revolutionary era. James Madison married Dolly Payne Todd here in 1794. The Marquis de Lafayette visited. Thomas Jefferson walked these halls. It was a center of political and social power in the early republic, a place where the future of a nation was discussed over dinner. The house still stands, preserved as a private residence. But its walls remember a time when West Virginia, though not yet a state, was at the center of American history. We're halfway through, and if you're still watching, you're exactly the kind of person this channel is made for. But here's the thing. YouTube only shows these videos to people who engage. So do me a favor, pause right now and smash that like button. It takes 2 seconds, but it tells the algorithm that this content matters, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We've got 50 states to explore, and West Virginia is just the beginning. Fact 35. Battle of Blair Mountain, the largest armed uprising since the Civil War. In August 1921, 10,000 coal miners armed with rifles marched into Logan County, West Virginia. They were met by 3,000 sheriff's deputies and private security forces hired by the coal companies. For 5 days, they fought a literal war in the hills. The Battle of Blair Mountain was the result of decades of exploitation. Miners worked in deadly conditions for poverty wages, paid in company scrip that could only be spent at company stores. When they tried to unionize, they were evicted from company housing, beaten, and sometimes killed. The federal government eventually sent in the army to stop the fighting. Over 1 million rounds were fired. At least 16 people died, though the real number is likely higher. It was the largest armed insurrection in the United States since the Civil War. The miners lost the battle, but they won the war. The violence shocked the nation and eventually led to labor reforms that gave workers the rights we take for granted today. Fact 34. The state born of secession, double treason. West Virginia is the only state formed by seceding from a Confederate state. When Virginia left the Union in 1861, The western counties refused to follow. The mountaineers had little in common with the plantation aristocrats of the Tidewater. They didn't own slaves. They didn't grow tobacco. They mined coal, cut timber, and scraped out a living from rocky hillsides. When Virginia chose the Confederacy, they chose the Union. In 1863, West Virginia became the 35th state. It was born of double treason. Virginia's treason against the Union, and West Virginia's treason against Virginia. The conflict within the state was brutal. Brother fought brother. Families were torn apart. And when the war ended, the scars remained. Fact 33. The Battle of Philippi, the first real fight. On June 3, 1861, Union and Confederate forces clashed in the small town of Philippi in what's considered the first organized land battle of the Civil War. It wasn't much of a battle. The Confederates retreated so quickly it was mockingly called the Philippi Races. The war here wasn't fought on grand battlefields with marching columns. It was fought in ambushes on mountain roads. Fact 32. Mother's Day. Born from grief. In 1908, Anna Jarvis held a memorial service for her mother at Andrews Methodist Episcopal Church in Grafton, West Virginia. She distributed white carnations, her mother's favorite flower, and began a campaign to create a national day honoring mothers. By 1914, President Woodrow Wilson had signed Mother's Day into law as a national holiday. Anna's mother, Ann Reeves Jarvis, had been a social activist who organized Mother's Day work clubs to improve sanitation and fight infant mortality during the Civil War era. Ironically, Anna Jarvis later became one of Mother's Day's fiercest critics, disgusted by its commercialization. She died in poverty, bitter that the holiday she created had become a corporate cash grab. But every second Sunday in May the world honors mothers because of a daughter's love in a small West Virginia town. Fact 31. John Brown's Raid. The spark that lit the powder keg. On October 16, 1859, abolitionist John Brown and 21 followers seized the federal armory at Harper's Ferry, intending to arm enslaved people and ignite a rebellion that would end slavery. The raid failed. Brown was captured by a force led by Robert E. Lee, tried for treason, and hanged, but his actions electrified the nation. Northerners saw him as a martyr. Southerners saw him as proof that the North wanted to destroy their way of life. Harper's Ferry sits at the confluence of the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers, where three states meet. It's a place where geography forced confrontation, where rivers cut through mountains, and where the fault lines of a nation finally broke open into war. Fact 30. The Greenbrier Bunker. The secret shelter for Congress. Beneath the Greenbrier Resort, a luxury hotel in White Sulphur Springs, lies one of the Cold War's best-kept secrets. A massive underground bunker designed to house the entire United States Congress in the event of nuclear war. Codenamed Project Greek Island, the bunker was built in secret. During the late 1950s, it contained dormitories, a hospital, decontamination chambers, and a legislative chamber, where Congress could continue to govern even as the world above burned. The bunker remained secret for over 30 years. A fake renovation crew maintained it under the cover of Hotel Merdens. Then, in 1992, a journalist exposed it. The government decommissioned it, and now it's a tourist attraction. But standing in those concrete halls, you can still feel the paranoia of the Cold War. The belief that at any moment, missiles could launch and the only survivors would be the people who made it underground in time. Fact 29. Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine. Drive through the darkness. In Beckley you can do something most people will never experience. Drive a car through an actual coal mine. The Beckley Exhibition Coal Mine is a real mine that operated from 1890 to 1910. Now it's a museum where vintage coal cars carry visitors deep into the mountain through passages where miners once worked by candlelight, breathing coal dust, risking cave-ins and explosions every single day. The mine is cold, dark, and claustrophobic. The ceiling presses down, water drips, and you realize that for generations, men descended into this darkness 6 days a week, knowing that every shift could be their last. Fact 28. Berkeley Springs, George Washington's favorite bath. Long before he became the first president, young George Washington visited Berkeley Springs, drawn by reports of warm mineral springs with healing properties. He loved the place. He bathed in the springs, which maintain a constant 74.3 degrees year-round. He surveyed the land. He returned multiple times throughout his life. The town still exists, built around those same springs. You can still bathe in the same warm water that Washington soaked in over 250 years ago. Water that rises from deep in the earth, heated by geothermal energy, carrying minerals dissolved from ancient rocks. Fact 27. Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. Built on blood. In the 1920s, a businessman named Conley Snidow built an amusement park on land near Princeton. It had a Ferris wheel, a swing ride, and a swimming pool. Families came from all over to enjoy a day of fun. But the land had a dark history. In 1783, a family named the Mitchells settled there. One day while the father was away, Native Americans attacked, killing 2 of his children. When he returned, he led a revenge raid that slaughtered several Native Americans. The amusement park was plagued by tragedy. In the 1950s, a little girl was killed on the swing ride when a truck backed into her. A boy drowned in the pool. The park closed in 1966. Investigators later discovered that the park was built on top of a Native American burial ground. Excavations uncovered numerous graves. Some say the spirits of the dead have never left, that the rusted rides still creak in windless nights, that children's laughter echoes across the empty grounds. Fact 26. Helvetia, the Swiss village frozen in time, deep in the mountains of Randolph County, accessible only by winding narrow roads, sits Helvetia, a Swiss settlement, founded in 1869 by immigrants seeking isolation and land that reminded them of home. The village has barely changed in 50 years. The descendants of the original settlers still speak a dialect of Swiss German. They celebrate traditional Swiss festivals. They make cheese the old way using recipes passed down through generations. Helvetia is what happens when geography creates isolation so complete that time slows down. The mountains protected this culture, kept it pure, kept it separate from the homogenization of modern America. It's a living museum of what determination and isolation can preserve. Fact 25. Pepperoni rolls. The miner's miracle lunch. In 1927, a baker in Fairmont named Giuseppe Argiro created something that would become West Virginia's unofficial state food, the pepperoni roll. Coal miners needed food that wouldn't spoil in the heat and darkness of the mines, something they could eat with dirty hands during their brief lunch breaks. Argiro's solution was simple: wrap pepperoni inside bread dough and bake it. The pepperoni releases oils into the bread as it bakes, keeping it moist. It's portable, calorie-dense, and delicious. It spread across the state and became a symbol of West Virginia. A working-class food born from necessity, perfected by immigrants and embraced by a culture that values practicality over pretense. Fact 24. Roadkill Cook-Off, where dead becomes delicious. Every September, the town of Marlinton hosts the Autumn Harvest Festival, which includes an event that perfectly captures West Virginia's dark sense of humor, the Roadkill Cook-Off. Contestants prepare dishes using animals killed on the road: deer, squirrel, even rattlesnake. It started as a joke, a way to poke fun at the stereotype of rural poverty. But it's become a genuine celebration of resourcefulness, of not wasting what the land provides, even if it arrives via the front bumper of a pickup truck. Fact 23. Appalachian dialects. Shakespeare in the Hollows. Linguists have discovered something remarkable in the isolated valleys of West Virginia, remnants of Elizabethan English that have survived for 400. Words and pronunciations that died out in England centuries ago are still used here. This happened because of isolation. When settlers came to these mountains in the 1700s, they were cut off from the linguistic evolution happening in cities, their language fossilized, preserved in the hollers like ancient insects in amber. Fact 22. Snake handling. Faith that kills. In a few remote Pentecostal churches in southern West Virginia, worshippers practice one of the most dangerous religious traditions in America: snake handling. Based on a literal interpretation of Mark 16:18, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing it shall not hurt them. Believers handle venomous snakes during services to prove their faith. They've been bitten. Some have died, but they continue, believing that God will protect the faithful. It's illegal in most places, but enforcement is rare. These churches are hidden in the deepest hollows, accessed by dirt roads that don't appear on maps, in communities where outsiders aren't welcome, and where faith is tested in the most extreme ways possible. Fact 21. Berdine's 5 and Dime. Retail frozen since. In the tiny town of Harrisville stands Berdine's 5 and Dime, one of the oldest continuously operating variety stores in the United States. Walking into Berdine's is like stepping into 1950. The wooden floors creak. The shelves are crowded with penny candy, handkerchiefs, oil lamps, and sundries. The cash register is mechanical. The prices are shockingly low. It survives because Harrisville is so small and remote that big box stores haven't bothered to move in. The geography that isolated this town also protected its economy, allowing a relic of American retail history to survive into the 20s. Listen, if you've made it this far, you're part of something special. Most people will never know these stories exist, but you do, and that matters. Before we get to the final, most mind-blowing facts, I need you to do 2 things. First, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Second, and this is important, comment below and tell me which fact has shocked you the most so far. I read every single comment, and your engagement helps this channel grow. Let's build a community of people who actually care about the hidden stories of America. Now let's finish this. Fact 20. Blackwater Falls. The river that runs like tea. Blackwater Falls is one of the most photographed waterfalls in West Virginia, and for good reason. The water cascades 57 feet over amber-colored sandstone, stained a deep tea color by tannins from hemlock and red spruce needles that fall into the water upstream. The tannic acid gives the water its distinctive dark appearance, creating a waterfall that looks like liquid gold in the right light. It's completely natural, completely safe to swim in, and absolutely stunning. A reminder that West Virginia's beauty isn't just in its geology, but in the chemical processes that make this landscape unique. Fact 19. Summersville Lake, the Little Bahamas of the East. When you see photos of Summersville Lake, you'll think someone made a mistake. The water is Caribbean blue, so clear you can see 30 feet down, surrounded by steep, forested cliffs. This isn't the Bahamas, it's West Virginia. The lake was created in 1966 when the Army Corps of Engineers dammed the Greenbrier. The water is so clean because there's almost no development upstream, just protected national forest. The rocky bottom and lack of sediment give it that impossible blue color. Cliff jumpers come from around the world to leap from the 60-foot rock faces into water so clear it's terrifying. You can see exactly how far you're about to fall. Fact 18. The Tees River, the ghost river that vanished. Millions of years ago, before the Ice Age, a massive river called the Tees flowed across what is now West Virginia, Ohio, and Indiana. It was one of the largest river systems in North America. Then the glaciers came. Ice sheets thousands of feet thick pushed south, blocking the Tees and forcing it to find new paths. Eventually the river was destroyed, its course buried under glacial till, but it left behind evidence. Ancient gravel deposits, buried channels, and, most importantly, it created the path for what would become the modern Ohio River. The Tees is gone, but its ghost shapes the hydrology of the region to this day. Fact 17. The Cheat River, where mines bleed into water. The Cheat River is beautiful in places, terrifying in others. In some sections the water runs clear and cold, perfect for whitewater rafting. In others it's stained orange, acidic and nearly lifeless. This is the legacy of coal mining. When mines are abandoned, water seeps through the exposed rock, dissolving iron and sulfur. The result is acid mine drainage, water with a pH so low it can dissolve metal and kill every living thing in the stream. Cleanup efforts have improved the river, but sections still run orange. It's a visible scar, a reminder that extracting West Virginia's buried wealth came at a cost that will take centuries to heal. Fact 16. Gauley Season, the Beast of the East. Every fall, the Army Corps of Engineers opens the dam at Summersville Lake, releasing massive amounts of water into the Gauley River below. This is Gauley Season, and whitewater rafters travel from around the globe to test themselves against rapids with names like Pure Screaming Hell and Lost Paddle. The river drops 6,668 feet in 28 miles, creating hydraulics powerful enough to flip rafts, hold swimmers underwater, and remind humans that no matter how much engineering we do, nature still decides who lives and who drowns. Fact 15. Megalonyx jeffersoni, Jefferson's lion. That was actually a sloth. In 1796, workers digging in a cave near White Sulphur Springs found enormous bones, massive claws, thick limb bones, fragments of a creature that seemed impossibly large. The bones were sent to Thomas Jefferson, who was fascinated by paleontology. He examined them and became convinced they belonged to a massive lion, 3 times larger than any lion alive today. He was wrong. They were the remains of a giant ground sloth, a creature that went extinct at the end of the Ice Age. The species was later named Megalonyx jeffersoni in his honor. Jefferson's lion was actually a 10-foot-tall, 2,000-pound herbivore that lumbered through the forests of West Virginia when mastodons and saber-toothed cats still roamed the land. Fact 14. Grave Creek Mound, the monument that predates Rome. In Moundsville stands one of the largest conical burial mounds in North America. Grave Creek Mound was built by the Adena culture around 250 BCE, long before Europeans arrived, long before written history reached this land. The mound is 62 feet high and 240 feet in diameter. It was built entirely by hand, basket by basket over generations. Inside were burial chambers containing artifacts, tools and the remains of the people who built a civilization in these river valleys. Standing at its base you realize that this land has been shaping human history for thousands of years, that the story of West Virginia didn't start with coal mines and country roads. It started with people who built monuments to outlast empires. Fact 13. The Mingo Oak, the giant that fell. In 1938, loggers cut down the largest white oak tree that has ever been reliably measured. The Mingo Oak stood 200 feet tall with a trunk circumference of 2. It was estimated to be over 500 years old, meaning it was already a massive tree when Columbus arrived in the Americas. It survived centuries of storms, droughts, and the arrival of European settlers, but it couldn't survive the demand for timber. A single cross-section of the tree is preserved at the West Virginia State Museum. The rings tell the story of centuries, wet years, dry years, fires that scarred the bark, and the slow, patient growth of a giant that once dominated these forests. Fact 12. Spruce Knob, an Arctic island in the south. At 4,063 feet, Spruce Knob is the highest point in West Virginia. But elevation isn't what makes it strange. The summit of Spruce Knob is covered in a forest of red spruce and balsam fir, species that normally grow in Canada. This is a boreal island, an ecological remnant of the Ice Age trapped on a mountaintop. When the glaciers retreated and the climate warmed, these species survived by retreating upward, clinging to the coldest peaks where winter never fully lets go. Fact 11. Harper's Ferry Water Gap, where rivers defy mountains. At Harper's Ferry, something impossible happens. The Potomac and Shenandoah rivers, flowing from different trash together and cut directly through the Blue Ridge Mountains in a narrow gorge. Rivers don't cut through mountains, they flow around them. But here, the rivers were already established when the mountains began to rise millions of years ago. Thomas Jefferson called the view from Harper's Ferry one of the most stupendous scenes in nature. He was right. Standing at the confluence, you're watching a geological battle that has been raging for millions of years, and the rivers are winning. Fact 1. The northernmost southern state. West Virginia's northern panhandle extends farther north than Pittsburgh, yet the state is culturally, politically, and historically considered southern. This creates bizarre contradictions. You can drive north into West Virginia from Pennsylvania and hear southern accents, see Confederate flags and feel like you've crossed the Mason-Dixon line, because you have, even though the compass says you're going the wrong direction. It's a state that defies geographic logic, a place where North and South collided during the Civil War and never fully separated. Fact 9. Weirton, the border city. The city of Weirton, West Virginia has a unique distinction. It's the only city in the United States that sits entirely within one state, while bordering two other states on both its northern and western sides. Pennsylvania borders it to the north, Ohio borders it to the west, but Weirton itself is 100% West Virginia, a narrow strip of land wedged between two larger states. It's a geographic accident, the result of colonial boundary disputes and the strange panhandle shape of West Virginia. But it creates a city where residents cross state lines to buy groceries or go to work, living in a place where geography is more suggestion than law. Fact 8. The Marble King, tiny spheres, global dominance. In the small town of Paden City, a factory produces most of the world's toy marbles. Marble King, founded in 1949, churns out millions of glass marbles every year, using machines that superheat glass and roll it into perfect spheres. The marbles are shipped around the world, ending up in games, art projects, and the pockets of children who have no idea they came from a factory in the hills of West Virginia. It's a strange, specific dominance, one tiny industry in one tiny town controlling a global market for a product that hasn't changed in centuries. Fact 7. The only state entirely in Appalachia. Every single square inch of West Virginia is mountainous. Every town, every city, every road is in the Appalachian Mountains, or their foothills. This makes it the only state that is entirely within a single mountain range. It's a state where flat land is so rare that when you find it, someone has already built on it. Where roads spiral up mountainsides, because there's no other way to get from valley to valley. The mountains define everything, the economy, the culture, the politics, even the way people speak. You can't understand West Virginia without understanding that it is fundamentally a mountain fortress. Fact 6. Forest coverage. Green despite the scars. Despite a century of intensive coal mining and logging, West Virginia is the third most forested state in the nation, with nearly 80% tree coverage. The forests reclaimed the land. When the mines closed and the loggers left, the trees came back. Tulip poplars, oaks, maples, and hemlocks spreading across hillsides that were once stripped bare. It's a testament to the resilience of this landscape, to the fact that nature here refuses to be permanently defeated. The scars remain, but the green has returned, covering them like skin growing over a wound. Fact 5. Chemical Valley, where the air has a name. Along the Kanawha River near Charleston lies a 20-mile stretch known as Chemical Valley. It's home to some of the largest chemical plants in the world, producing everything from plastics to pesticides. The plants have been there for over a century, drawn by the river for transportation, the coal for energy, and the lack of regulations. They've produced chemicals that changed the world, and chemicals that poisoned it. In the 1950s, DuPont released C8, a chemical used in Teflon, into the river. It contaminated drinking water for 70,000 people, and has been linked to cancer, thyroid disease, and other illnesses. The legal battle lasted decades, and exposed the dark side of industrial progress. Chemical Valley is still operating. The plants still produce. And the people who live there still carry chemicals in their blood that will be there for the rest of their lives. Fact 4. The Green Bank Telescope, the largest moving object on land. We started this journey in the National Radio Quiet Zone. Now we return to its heart, the Green Bank Telescope. This is the largest fully steerable radio telescope on Earth. It weighs 17 million pounds, heavier than the Statue of Liberty, yet it can be aimed at any point in the sky with precision measured in fractions of a degree. It has discovered pulsars, mapped cosmic hydrogen clouds, and searched for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. It listens to the universe, capturing whispers of radiation from events that happened billions of years ago, light years away. And it can only exist here in this valley where the federal government has banned the 21st century to preserve silence. Fact 3. Montani Semper Liberi. The state motto that's a threat. West Virginia's state motto is Montani Semper Liberi, Latin for mountaineers are always free. Most state mottos are aspirational or inspirational. This one is a warning. It's a declaration that the people of these mountains will not be controlled, will not be tamed, will not submit to authority they don't respect. It was chosen after the Civil War, when West Virginia had just seceded from Virginia, defied the Confederacy, and fought a guerrilla war in its own hollers. It's a motto born of rebellion, and it still defines the state's identity. Fact 2. The Appalachian Orogeny. Mountains that rivaled Everest. Around 300 million years ago, the continents collided. Africa crashed into North America with such force that it buckled the crust, pushing up mountain ranges that rivaled the modern Himalayas. These were the ancestral Appalachians, peaks that may have reached 20,000 feet or higher. But unlike the Himalayas, which are still rising, the Appalachians have been eroding for hundreds of millions of years. Wind, rain, ice, and time wore them down. What remains are the rounded forested peaks we see today, ghosts of giants, ancient mountains that once touched the sky and now sleep beneath blankets of trees. But even in their diminished state, they remain a barrier. They isolate, they define, they endure. Fact 1. The New River, the river older than the mountains. And now we arrive at the ultimate geological paradox of West Virginia. The New River. Despite its name, the New River is one of the oldest rivers in the world, possibly second only to the Nile. It's estimated to be between 10 and 360 million years old, which means it was already here when the Appalachian Mountains began to rise. Most rivers carve valleys after mountains form. The New River did the opposite. As the mountains rose, the river simply cut deeper, maintaining its course through sheer persistence. It flows north against the grain of the continent, because it was established before the current topography existed. For 300 million years, this river has refused to move. The mountains rose around it, and it responded by cutting through them. The New River Gorge, 1,000 feet deep in places, is the scar of that ancient battle, and the river is still cutting, still flowing, still defying the landscape it helped create. This is West Virginia in a single fact, ancient, stubborn, and utterly unwilling to be moved. So there you have it. 50 facts about West Virginia that prove this state is far more than stereotypes in country roads. It's a land where Wi-Fi is illegal, and cryptids are real. Where rivers are older than mountains and mountains were once taller than Everest. Where the government hid a nuclear bunker under a luxury hotel, and miners went to war with machine guns against their own countrymen. It's a place where nature refuses to be tamed, where history is written in stone layers millions of years old, and where the past and present exist in tension that defines everything. West Virginia is the paradox state, and now you know why. Which fact shocked you the most? Drop it in the comments. And if you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer I make these videos for. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's keep exploring the hidden stories of America together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.